Hi, my name is Mariam Mohammed. I am the co-founder of a social enterprise called MoneyGirl that delivers financial education for young women across Australia. I'm a Pakistani woman who arrived in Gadigal lands in 2013 after escaping gendered violence. I don't know if I would say I picked a career in finance. I kind of ended up here accidentally. I am an artist and community developer at heart. What I was really wanting to do was serve my people, serve the women like me, women of color in Australia, migrants, refugees, and First Nations women who are often left out of the conversation on personal finance because finance, personal finance especially, has very little to do with literal money and everything to do with our stories. The stories that we were brought up with, the stories we continue to tell ourselves. And that's why I got into finance or MoneyGirl. But I see it more as a community development thing and not so much a finance thing. The reason financial education is important for everyone, but especially women, an average person in Australia, an average young woman, will graduate and enter the workforce earning roughly the same as her male counterparts, but over the years, she will start experiencing a gender pay gap of anywhere between 14 to 21%. In certain industries, it is significantly more than that. At a certain point in her life, she may take time out for carer responsibilities because those primarily still fall on women. When she re-enters the workforce, she will be set back in terms of career progression, and now the gender pay gap is piling on top of that, which means that by the time she is retiring, she has about 47% less in her superannuation than her male counterparts. Now, women in Australia live longer than men and have less in their superannuation to survive those years, which means that women over 55 are the fastest growing segment of the homeless population in Australia. That's the reason why I focus on young women in particular, because financial education has lifelong implications for women in Australia and worldwide. The most alarming thing when it comes to women and finance. Now, this is going to be seasonal because every now and then a finfluencer comes out with some new fad and it's deeply alarming. At the moment, what is very present for me is financial education has become really focused on the how-tos of managing money, and those are very important, and they definitely have a very important place in financial education for the whole population. However, from research evidence, we know that tactics won't stick unless we address the feelings behind money habits. That is to say, money psychology is significantly more important than money habits. Have you ever tried a new tactic, like a budget tactic, and you do it for 7 days, 14 days, 1 month, but you have to put yourself through hell to make yourself stick to it, and in the end, you fall back to the old pattern? That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the person. It's just that they weren't told that there's a reason they have a particular money habit, and that is likely rooted in a story from possibly their childhood or some personal experience with money, or even their extended family's relationship and experiences with money. And until that story is addressed, until we sit with that story and explore what beliefs we hold about money and heal those money wounds, we will keep reverting back to our default money habits. And I think by focusing on the how-tos, which is just the tactics, we do people a disservice when it comes to financial education, because we gotta start at the center. We gotta start at where it all started. Why do I feel the way I do about money? And then work outwards towards the tactics and the how-tos. Things to consider when we are picking a superannuation. There is no one right or wrong answer here, but some of the things I encourage MoneyGirl students to consider when it comes to picking superannuation funds is returns. What are the super funds returns over a period of time, not just 1 year, 2 years, but a long period of time, because our superannuation is a long-term investment. So we want to see evidence of how the superannuation fund has performed over a 5 or 10 or 20-year period of time. But that's not all. Returns is one thing. The other thing is fees. If a fund has really great returns, but also really great fees, what are my net returns? Which is to say, returns minus fees. Am I still in the positive? And weigh that against the other options. So if I'm considering 3 different super funds, I'm going to compare my net returns, not just what they've advertised on their website. I'm also going to consider their fees and then compare their net returns. So I will also compare that in the same kind of portfolio across the super funds. So if super fund number 1 is high growth, I will compare super fund number 2's high growth option. That is to say, compare apples to apples. I won't pick a high growth option here and then a low growth option here and compare the net returns. The last thing to consider, and this is where it becomes very personal, is the super fund a right fit for me? Every super fund has a different philosophy when it comes to investments. What they invest in, what lens do they take when investing in companies. This is where I will consider what my investment values are and what super fund aligns with those investment values. If you're just starting out in your career, some of the things to consider with superannuation is 1, knowing what it is. As a migrant on this country, I didn't really understand what this fancy word meant. It is essentially just a retirement fund, but we have a nice name for it in Australia called superannuation. And knowing that a certain percentage of my salary is always going into the superannuation, it is not a bonus that my employer is giving me. This is money that I have earned. So if 12% of my salary is going into my superannuation, that's 12% of the hours I work every week going into my superannuation. So I will make decisions accordingly, like choosing a super fund that is aligned with me, a super fund that is giving me good returns over time. Some of the other things to consider are consolidating our super into one place. There are some strategic reasons why people might have multiple super accounts. For most of us, one superannuation account will suffice. However, especially when we're starting out in our career, we tend to not know what super is, and our employer says, open this account with this fund, and by the time we've switched to our 4th job, we have 4 superannuation accounts. What that means is we're paying fees in 4 different super funds or for 4 different accounts. In the long term, it pays to have a look at our superannuation just once a year even. Maybe when we're doing our taxes, we see what the total amount is, we see what the returns have been like, and we see if we've got multiple accounts, do I really need to have multiple accounts, or is it okay to consolidate it all into the same account? Another thing to consider is insurances within superannuation. For young people, insurances kind of seem futile because when we're young, we think nothing bad is going to happen to us. However, there are certain insurance options available to us within superannuation, like life insurance, temporary or permanent disability insurance. It pays to have a look at our insurances while we're young and healthy and don't need them, so that they are there in case we ever do need them. In summary, have a look at how many superannuation accounts you've got. What fund are you with? Is it a fund that is aligned with your investment values? What are the net returns that your super fund is giving you? Which is to say, their returns minus their fees. And Do you have the necessary or required insurances within your super? So superannuation might seem like something that is not relevant to young people because retirement seems so far away to us. And it's kind of impossible for the human brain to actually imagine time in such large scales. When I'm 20, it is genuinely close to impossible for me to imagine being 60. I still cannot imagine being over 45, and yet one day I will be, I might be. So what I encourage young people to do is imagine what their retirement actually looks like. What are their dreams? Retirement means different things to different people. For someone, it does mean retiring at 65. For someone, it means mini retirements throughout their career. I encourage people to ground themselves in their own definitions of retirement, of financial stability and financial freedom. None of those things mean the same thing for everyone. Define what those dreams are for yourself, and then assess, what do I need to do in order to get there? That's why there isn't one superannuation strategy or retirement strategy for everyone. But the decisions I make today will impact what outcomes I have in 10, 20, 50 years. So I will make my decisions accordingly. But if I'm saving for some arbitrary goal that some internet guru told me results in financial freedom, I am less likely to be motivated by that goal, by someone else's definition of financial freedom. But if I have my own definition, my own dreams, then I am more motivated to take one step towards that goal. And it doesn't have to be a foolproof strategy. It's kind of like a guiding North Star. It doesn't have to be a linear line towards the North Star. It can go this way and that way on all the tangents in the world. As long as I'm moving in the general direction of my North Star, I will be good.